Now, to do the actual login and register, I'll begin with registration. And for the registration, I'll have another method here, which I'll call even another click, which will be binding dot button register dot set on click listener. And when you click register, you're going to get all the input, private fun get inputs. And then what we need from the inputs is val username, which I'm going to get from binding dot it username dot get text dot to string. Then we are going to have val user email, which will be binding dot it email dot text dot to string. And then we are going to have val password, which will be binding dot id password dot text dot string. And then we are going to have val confirm password, which will be binding dot get text dot c password dot text dot to string. Now we are going to check for empty inputs. If username not equal to null, and also user email not equal to null, and user and password not equal to null, and finally if confirm password not equal to null, else if any of these one is equal to null dot, or we can just check using Kotlin dot is not empty dot is not empty dot is not empty dot is not empty. So if all of them has values, we continue with our checks. So I'm going to have another function here, private fun show error, and my show error message, I'll show message. I'm going to pass message of type string, and inside it I'm going to have a toast dot make text, and I'm making in this, and I'm showing the message, and I'm having a toast dot length short, and then show. So if any of the input is empty, just say all inputs required. Then we do check for password. If password dot equal to c password, else if not equal, we show a message saying password mismatch. So if they are equal, then we proceed to do registration. Create a new method which you are going to say private fun register user, and then we are going to have val. Remember, we created a model that will hold our user data, so we are going to have val register request of type register request, which will be register request, and we need to pass data here. So the expected data is username, email, password, and date. So what you are going to do is have this method return all that data. So you are going to have username of type string, user, email of type string, user, joint date, okay, password, before this one it password of type string, and finally joined date of type string. So for this one we need the username, so we give it username, we need user email, we need password, and we did a joined date. Then we are going to have our API call. Our callback will be val API call. We are going to have remember we created this one, API client dot get service dot register user, and then we need to pass it register request, and then we are going to queue this request and then expect a callback. So we are going to have a callback which will have our register response. This one is a callback for retrofit. So let's see here. Then we add braces here, and then within our brackets we override these two methods. Remember, this callback should be a retrofit callback. So this one will tell us whether the user was registered successfully, and this one we are going to get why the user did get a successful registration. Once the user is registered successfully, so we are going to do if. Remember, the response can be successful or not. So if successful, we are going to move user to login so that the user can log in. Else we are going to show message, and then we are going to enable to register, or the type of message that you want to show. If the request failed, that means we had maybe network error, the server responded with the data we didn't expect. This is where we show the user that message. So what we do, we show message, and then we say an error occurred, and then we can do plus the throwable dot localized message. So that's all we need there. Then we can call this method here. Once we check our password matches, then let's register user. For username, we're going to give it username. For user email, we're going to give it user email. And then for password, we're going to give it password. And then for date, I'm going to give it this date, 2021, and then December. Then I can give 03 and the time. So let's try our registration. Remember also, when we are doing this, we added the logger. So it's time for us to check what the logger does. So create account, and this one, before we start doing the actual registration, I would like we'll visit the API service. Our API service provides a path whereby our URL or our endpoint points at. So if I go back and look at the API, each endpoint has a slash in the beginning and a slash at the end. Remember, we didn't put at the end, so we need to put that one, and here we also need to add one. Then we're going to click learn again, and then create account. And for this one, I'm just going to have user 10. And then for this one, I'm just going to have user 10 at gmail.com. Then I'm going to have pass at 123, pass at 123. And then let's open the logger so that we can see what happens when I click register button. So once I click register button, it's showing successful. And then here we see the data that has been posted to the server, and then the response from the server. All this is done by the logger that we added here in the API client. If you don't want to do this in production, you can just comment this one out. Then the next thing that we are going to do is user registration. Remember, the user we have created is user 10 and the password is pass8123. So let's now try to log in our user. Now let's begin doing user login. So go to your login activity. As you can see, we have already created a method called init data, and then click listener. So we are going to add another method here, and we are going to say binding dot button login dot set on click listener. Once you click that button, we are going to have private fun. Then we are going to have get inputs. So I'm just going to copy this one and paste it here. Then the first thing that I'm going to do is to have val username, which will be binding dot it username dot text dot to string, and then I'm going to have val password, and then I'm going to have binding dot it password dot text dot to string. And then I'm going to check if they are empty or not. So if username dot is not empty and password dot is not empty, then we proceed and log in user, else we are going to show a toast message. So we can just copy our toast message. It's here, just copy it, and then back to the login activity, paste it there. So what we need to do is tell the user all inputs required. If the user username and the password is there, we need to have a method here called private fun login user. And what we need is to give this method the username, which will be of type string, username of type string, and then we'll have the password of type string. Inside it, we are going to have our model. As you can see, user request, username and password. So we are going to have val login request, login request, which will be login request, and then I'm going to pass the username and the password. I'm also going to call our API client. Now for the API call, just have val API call, which is API call. So we have our API client dot get service dot, now we are doing register user, login user, and then we need to pass it the login request. Then the final thing is that API call dot enqueue, and then we'll have object, and then we need callback. Remember, this callback must be retrofit callback. So sometimes you'll have to scroll because you have different callback. Once you get this on, and then inside it we are expecting login response. Then you are going to override some methods here, the two of these. So we have on success and then on failure. When we are successful, we are going to have private fun move to dashboard. Here we are going to start activity, and then we are going to have intent. We are going to move from this to dashboard, and then if there is a failure, we are going to show a toast message. So here what we're going to do is if response dot is successful, move to dashboard, else we are going to show a message, and the message here is unable to login. You can add, please check your credentials and try again. Then if it's a failure, you can show a message here and say an error occurred, and then you can even include the error t.getLocalized message. Now we are going to pass the username and the password here, so we just have your username and password. Then we can learn our application and see how it works. So we have user 10, and then for password is pass8123. So I'm going to open here so that we can see what's happening. So we get an error message. Let's see. We have attempted to log in. There was an error. So we're going to check. So we are trying to access API, LANTech, and then there is 4.4, meaning there is no authentication. So we are going to go back to the API, and then it's authenticate, not authentication. Authenticate back to your API service and have authenticate. Learn again. Now you see the importance of having the logger. So we are going to have user 10, and here we are going to have pass at 123, and then let's login. There we are, successful login. Here is the dashboard. So now what you are going to do in the dashboard is to display this username of the logged in user. Now to display the name of the logged in user, just go to your dashboard, and then what you are going to start is private latinate val binding, and then we are going to have dashboard activity binding or activity dashboard binding, and then after on create, have your binding, which will be activity dashboard dot inflate layout inflator, and then have val load, which will be binding dot load, and then we can have this one as the set content view. Then we have private fun init data, and then inside here what we want to do is have our binding dot tv user detail dot set text, and then we are going to set a text here. So the text that we want to set, we can create another method here called private fun set username, and here I'm just going to copy this one, and here I'll have username of type string, and this is what I'm going to set here. Then here private init data, I'm going to call this method inside on create, and then since I'm going to use intent to pass the username, what I need to do is to have a val intent, which is equal to get intent dot get extras if intent dot all not equal to null. Then we can have username val username, which will be intent dot get string extra, and then the key will be username, and then we can call our method called set username, and we can give it the parameter username, which is of type string. Then we go back to register activity where we are moving to dashboard, and then we can put extra username, which will be this one. We can give it username of type string, and then it will have username. Then here, remember our response have login response, so we have the username. I'll just need to have the login response, which is the response dot body dot username. We can add this one to make sure it's not null, and then we can run our activity again. We are going to use the same user to log in, so we'll have user 10, and then we'll have pass it 1 2 3, then login, then we have the user 10. You guys, you can try to show the email or the ID of the user. And this brings us to the end of our masterclass. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have a question, let me know in the comment, or you can reach us through our email, that is learntech20@gmail.com. Thank you all.